Hello, my name is Janine Baimelos and I'm doing my presentation on octopus play and sociality. So, when you start with this topic, you kind of ask the questions of how do octopuses play? Do they even play? What does every day look like? The next articles I'll go over kind of go over these concepts and more. I think that the first article really encapsulates the whole idea of octopuses playing by saying how studying play behavior in octopuses is an important step towards understanding the origins and the function of play, as well as cognitive abilities of invertebrates. I think that really speaks to the whole concept better in a way that it goes to show why we're even studying it, why we should even be interested in it. So, and then another thing with these articles is that they brush briefly on the evolutionary stance of play and how it's a little bit outdated. Let's dive in. So the first article, it was a study done in 2003, I believe. The introduction goes over Hutt's theory. So Hutt's theory is a play. Hutt's theory of play is kind of the framework of a child's developmental process of playing. First, the child goes, "What is an object?" and then secondary, "What can I do with it?" And this kind of framework is mentioned in this article because they try to translate it a little bit to squids, but it's just more complex, obviously, because invertebrates are not children. So the way that they divide the work was that in a span of a couple weeks, these octopuses were held in tanks. And then they had objects at a fixed distance in front of them. So they used black and white Lego blocks, and they just watched for 30 minutes to see these octopuses play or interact with these Lego blocks. The result was that 9 out of 14 played on level 3, which means that they did all this kind of stuff together while the others did some level 1 and level 2 actions. But this whole article kind of just points to reconsidering the theories of play on evolution of play because they seem a little bit outdated and more complex than the simple Hutt's theory of. So the second article is a little confusing because it goes into individual recognition. This is the definition that they put, but it's in more simple terms, it has to do with the ability to recognize another similar species around you, pick up some cues around that person or that species or organism, and kind of associate it with what's happening in front of you. It has to do with more complex cognitive ability. So they mentioned that in the introduction because that's what they kind of study in these octopuses. So they divide it into phases. Phase 1 was about two octopuses seeing each other in a tank with a wall, like a clear wall separating them. While phase 2, they were allowed to interact for 15 minutes. And then the other phase, they were paired up, but not with the previously octopus that they were interacting. And according to the conclusion, they were able to correctly assume that they were put in different interactions. This was actually the first study to report evidence that octopuses have the ability to recognize familiar aspects and stuff. So that's pretty cool. To be more specific, the octopuses were able to remember one day prior to the organism that they were with, the original squid that they were with. So meaning that they had a little bit of memory, and some cognitive ability to process all that. So that's pretty cool. And then the last one, I think this article really focuses on the brain and body ratio of an octopus because it's complex. It's not very simple. And this study says to understand some other aspects, basically to study play is to understand some other aspect of their functionality. So meaning that seeing them play it means much more than just seeing them play. It means how they interact, their cognitive ability, the way that they do stuff. And it's just super interesting because it's not as simple as we think it is. Hutt's theory is again mentioned, but for sure it's kind of called out again because more design and research really has to go into it. So that was that article. About this experiment, they put 8 octopuses to play with an empty bottle for 30 minutes, but only 2 of the octopuses played with it. So it was kind of like not the evidence that they were hoping for, but it was still, worth evaluating. And then this article also goes into the realm of conscientious, I can't even say that word, consciousness, and how they have a simple form of consciousness. So from an evolutionary standpoint, that's kind of significant because while humans are more developed and in the sense of the evolutionary standpoint, the octopuses are not quite as there, but yet they still have some significant development. And I feel like that's just really important to emphasize because it just goes to show the history of octopus's ability to think and play for itself. So lastly, all these articles, like I said, kind of touch on the subject that more evidence needs to be done to connect a little bit more of the dots. Hutt's work is definitely a reference in a lot of these articles. Maybe adjusting our theories on play to shape them or to have them fit better into different species would benefit us because then we can qualify and quantify what we're looking for more readily. And then these articles definitely have a emphasis on the evolutionary standpoint, how far octopuses came versus humans, and what that means. So yeah, that's cool. And then basically we just need to research and hopefully gain some momentum and excitement for what we might discover. But basically that's it. Thank you.